YouTube Lokai Nama. Welcome back to another week of live streams with me, your host, Victor Kara, checking the microphone. Okay, got the right microphone on. So today, what are we doing? We're doing Phaladipika, 26th text of second chapter. Of course, Phaladipika is, I think, 14th century Sanskrit classic, super excellent classic on astrology. Today's topic is how the planets pertain to the body and its senses, and also the elements. There's also a related topic, which is a couple of texts down from this one. I think it's 28, which is the flavors. I should have probably included that one in here, but when we get to that, I'll probably just review back to this. All right, then we shall begin. We want to hang on a second. I'm opening things that I shouldn't open. Okay, here we go. Body, senses, elements. Boom. So here's the statement. This is 26. Deho dehi himoruchirinas tvindriyasya apurva. Are you getting any familiarity with at least the names of the planets? If you get familiar with some of the names of the planets, then you can even start to, get an anchor into some of the Sanskrit to understand what he's talking about. Excuse me. Himaruchi is a name for the moon, which is very nice. It means cool light or snow white. Deho Dehi is also a famous Sanskrit. These are famous Sanskrit words. They're all over the place. Deho Dehi. Deho Dehi Himaruchirinas. Inas, now he's used that name for the sun several times. Never heard it before, but he's used it several times. It means the energetic one, source of the energy. Deho Dehi Himaruchirinas Tindriyasya Purva Aditya Dvit Gulika Kinas Tasya Pidakara Syu Ganda Somyo Briguja Sashino Dvau Rasao Surya Bhaumao Rupao Shabdo Gururata Pare Sparsha Sangya Pradishta. All right, what does this all mean? That's what it means. The snow white moon is the whole body, and the sun is the energetic embodied. The rest of the planets are the senses. Mercury, smell. Venus and moon, taste. Mars and sun, sight. Jupiter, sound. Saturn, touch. The sun haters, like Gulika and Ketu, give them trouble. So we start off the verse with this classical dichotomy between Deho and Dehi. Deha means the place that you inhabit. So, like Desha, Deha, the place that you inhabit. So, when you talk about a person, the place that they inhabit actually is not considered their house by the philosophers of India. The place that they inhabit is considered their body. That's your first house. Literally, your first house is your body, and your first house out of all the houses that you like. I inhabit this room, which is a part of this town, etc. But the first thing that I inhabit is my body. So the main thing, which is denoted by the word deha, is your body, and then dehi is the one it's the one who possesses the body or who has the body. It's the one who inhabits the body, right? They start off with this dichotomy between the occupant and the occupied, the deho and the dehi, the body and the owner of the body. They then say this is analogous to Himaruchi and Inas, the moon and the sun. Now the sun is named Inas, which means the supplier of energy, the source of all energy. That's what the Dehi is to the Deha. Dehinasmin yata dehe komaranyo namjara. Yata dehantra prapti. This is like one of the instances in Bhagavad Gita where Deho Dehi is mentioned. It's all over the place, Upanishads everywhere. The energetic one is the one that actually generates the energy. The energetic thing, like coal, generates energy like fire. An atom, it's energetic and it can release atomic energy. So the energetic thing is the Dehi, and then the energy that's produced is the Deha. The sun is the energetic planet. So it represents the inhabitant of the body, the actual core of the self. And then the thing that it produces is Himaruchi. The sun produces the moonlight. The moon doesn't produce the moonlight. Similarly, the body doesn't produce itself and then get inhabited by a soul from some fairyland. The body is a growth from the soul. It's a production from the soul. Just like hair is a production from your head. So the body is a growth from the soul. It's an expression or an outfolding of the soul. It's in the same way that Inas, or the sun, produces the light of the moon by reflecting off it. But the moon's light is Himaruchi. The moon's light is cold. It's not energetic. It's cooling. It's calming. The same way the body reflects consciousness from the energetic being. But the body itself is not energetic. It's reflecting the energetic. The body itself is not conscious. So hence, the moon will signify the whole entire body. Your whole outer body. That's why every time you open up a classic Sanskrit book, I'm not sure if Phaladipika is going to do it too. They usually have a chapter which is like Linda Goodman's sun signs, etc. Like they usually have a chapter like that in there, which is like Moon in Taurus is this, Moon in Gemini is this. You know, they usually at least do it for the. They usually at least do it for the moon, but most of the books will do it for every planet. Every planet and every sign. And when you look at the moon thing, every time it says moon in Aries, the person is short and muscular and thin. And then some other stuff about them. Moon in Taurus, they have big eyes and they're beautiful and they're thick. Moon in Gemini, and some other stuff too. Moon in Gemini, oh, they're so well dressed, they're so handsome, lookable, and such. Like every single moon in sign has something about the body, like a lot about the body. And you'll sit there and scratch your head and say, but the moon is the mind. Why is it the body? Well, for this, you have to realize that mind and body are both parts of the body. The Deha involves the Shukshma Deha and the Sthula Deha. The unseen body and the seen body. The imperceptible body and the perceptible body. Those are both bodies. The inner being is not a body, it's a person, it's a being, it's a consciousness that produces form. It's not a form itself. It produces form. So, the moon is the mind. That's not contradictory with him saying it's the body, because the mind is the basement of the body. The mind is the foundation of the body. Just as the soul is the foundation for the mind is the foundation for the body, and the mind and the body are part of the same thing. There's an inner and an outer side of the same thing. Okay, so the Snow White moon is the whole body, and the sun is the energetic embodied. Make sense? Any question? After this, he's going to break down the parts of the body. There's a funny Bengali song that I remember that I'll share with you in a second if there's no questions. Yeah, Gulka, you'll find out. No, Deho Dehi is not body mind. It's, as I just talked about, mind and body are both part of Deha, the thing that you occupy. The Dehi is the conscious being. It's another way of saying, it's not, the English lacks a two-word phrase that would match Deho Dehi. If the body moon is produced by the soul sun, then why are some terrible people really attractive? Actually, I don't find terrible people very attractive at all. You'll find that terrible people have to fake attractiveness a lot. They'll have to spend a lot of time. They'll have to spend a lot of money, surgeries, fancy clothes, really fancy creams and makeups to look passable, to impersonate a beautiful person. Yeah, you don't really find that. Now, attractiveness is different than beauty. You may be attracted by your karma to a person who's horrible. So you may find a person irresistible even though they're evil, because that's irresistible for your destiny. But beauty, which may or may not be attractive to everybody, is not a quality of an evil person. Yes, it's interesting here that he mentions Gulika. I'll talk about that actually when we get there. All right, let's move on. Talk about the next thing. The rest of the planets, Indriyasya, they're the Indriyas. So this is the funny Bengali song. Sharira avidya jal, jyotendriya tahika. The funny part is avidya. The body is a big net of ignorance composed of senses. Sharira avidya jal, jyotendriya tahika. So that's what a body is. A body, what is a body? Like when you have a closet and you have a bar across the top and you have a hanger and you can put a dress on the hanger. The body is really just a bunch of dresses hanging in a closet. So there's like the bar across the top is like a skeletal structure. The hanger is like all the various structures, but really what the body is a way to hold these dresses. What are the dresses? The senses, the 10 senses. 5 incoming, 5 outgoing senses. The body is an organized structure of our senses. So here he says the Deho is composed also of the other planets, including the sun. In terms of they each represent one of the senses that comprises the body. Deho, Dehi, Himaruchirnas, Indriyasyar, Apurva, all the ones that haven't been mentioned besides sun and moon, consist of the senses. Adityadvit. Let's not do that yet. Let's go back to that third line, because it doesn't make too much sense in English. All right. So what senses to what planet? He's going to say Somya, which means the moon's sun, Mercury. Mercury is for the sense of smell. So Mercury will determine the nose. Everybody says I have like a nose that you notice. My Mercury is exactly on my 8th house cusp. So it exactly aspects my 2nd house. So it has a big influence on my face. I mean, this is early since before I even studied Vedic astrology seriously. but I used to start associating with people who were into it. They would just guess right away that I had prominent Mercury because of my nose. So Mercury is the sense of smell, so it will impact the nose a lot. Then he says Briguja and Shashi. Briguja is Venus, and Shashi is the moon. The one who's Briguja is the name for Parashar, who's the deity for Venus. Not Parashar. Parshuram, who's the deity for Venus. Shashi is the rabbit mark. The moon is a rabbit mark. In America, they said there was a man in the moon, but in India, they think there's a rabbit on the moon. It's marked with a rabbit. Two big ears going up. So Briguja and Shashi, those two dwell, are for rasa, which is taste, flavor. But rasa means flavor and taste, and it also means aesthetics, connoisseurness, etc. So Venus and the moon are specifically in the mouth and as the sense of taste. But they also, just like we use the English word taste. Do you have taste? That guy has no taste. Oh, I like your taste in music. That we use the word taste like that. That's the same way that it's been used for centuries. And it was used that way in Sanskrit as well. Concept of taste. So Venus and moon, they impact your desires as well. And the physical body, they'll impact your sense of... This is very interesting. This is the first time I'm actually putting this into words. In the physical body, the sense of taste is in your mouth, literally. In the subtle body, the unseen body, the sense of taste is your taste. What you like, what you don't like. The Mercury in the physical body is the nose in the sense of smell. In the subtle body, it's what the nose does. I'll show you this also on another slide. But it makes sense out of things. It figures out what things are. Then he says, Surya Bhomo Rupo. So for Rupa, which is form, he's actually, it's interesting, he's saying the sense object. Rupa, Gandha, Rasa, and Sparsha are the objects. Form, sound, tactility, or texture, form, sound, texture, and what's the other one? Fragrance. And taste and flavor. But this means that the planet is in that thing. You'll see. It's in that thing, and it's in the sense that perceives it in the body. Venus and moon taste. Then he says Surya and Bhoma. Surya is the sun, and Bhoma is Kuja, earthborn, child of the earth. So why are they Rupa? Why is... Actually, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I'll show you why later. Sun and Mars are for sight. And then Shabda is Guru. Shabda are sound. Hearing, the ears, is Guru. What would sight be in the internal body? Sight would be decision making. Distinguishing and decision making, which is not the same as intellect or Mercury. And then Atappare, that means the other one, which is Saturn. Why didn't he say Saturn? Because it didn't have the right number of syllables to fit into the line. I've seen some translators want to say that this means that Rahu and Ketu, but that actually makes completely no sense. In contrast to the second line, it would be contradictory to the second line. It's just saying Saturn, but they fit these into, as you can tell, right? Rupa, Shabda, Guru, Tapare, Sparsha, Sangya, Pradishta. You can't have any more or less syllables and still have it fit that meter. So sometimes they just pick unusual words to fit the meter. Tapare, Sparsha. That's Saturn for touch. Sangya, Pradishta. Pradishta. You can start Pradishta means you can get a sense of something. Sangya, you can figure something out. So he's saying you can figure out the person's sense of touch from their Saturn. You can figure, and then also therefore their skin, which is strange though, I'll tell, because a lot of these things overlap, because Mercury definitely is your skin, it's talk. And Saturn is definitely your teeth. There's a whole lot more going on. This is not the everything about it. He's giving some information about the bodily correspondences of the planets. And particularly how they represent, I believe probably he's not really talking about their appearance, but he's talking about the function of the sense. So how the body functions for the sense of touch through Saturn, how it functions for the sense of sound through Jupiter, how it functions for sight through Mars and the Sun, how it functions through taste for the Moon and Venus, and how it functions with smell as Mercury. Any questions up to there? We still have the second line to look at. So questions about Gulika, I'll still hold off on that. Hi, IT guy. It's also known that the devas, that actually humans have a very inferior sense of smell. Almost any other species has a better sense of smell than humans. But I think humans have something else. But our sense of smell is pretty off. But some people, like my son, I have like an incredible sense of smell. Sometimes the brain just gets wired the right way. But it's well known that the devas, they have a sense of smell that's like what the bears and things have. So very intelligent beings, they also have a very good sense of smell, in addition to the other senses. I don't know why I'm mentioning that. Because it's Mercury, maybe. Would the general breathing pattern of an individual qualify as a Mercury thing? It may. Like, he's just introducing a concept here. If you try to go and read stuff now, like you look at charts, maybe something happens to be really obvious and clear and it'll pop out, but maybe you'll go very wrong in your interpretation or get very confused because you haven't heard the whole story about medical astrology, physical astrology. Moon is the mind. So Quinn again is asking like, what's up with this? So the moon is the mind. So I bet you Jay Quinn just came in late, which is the YouTube's most lovely feature. If you're trying to actually teach something instead of just entertain people. Rewind it and watch it again. Moon is the mind. Mind is part of the body. And mind is the root of the senses. So all of the planets assist the moon. The moon is the king of the stars. All the planets assist the moon, which then gives its impressions to the sun. The sun is looking at the moon. The sun shines off the moon. The moon is connected with all these other planets. In the same way the conscious entity is looking at the mind. The mind's connected through all these senses, experiencing the world. So you don't have to get hung up on the idea that if the moon is the mind, then how is it the body? The mind is part of the body and the foundation for the body. If the moon is the mind, then how is it the sense of taste? Well, it's a secondary planet for the sense of taste. Venus is primary, and moon is just because you'll find out why, because of the elements that it is. Why do people think of mind and body as separate? Because they're not the same, because the mind is invisible, non-physical. So it's like I said earlier in this stream, you have Shukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira. You have two aspects of Sharira, which is Deha, two aspects of body. One is Shukshma, something that you can't perceive directly, that is not physical, and one is stula, something that is physical. There's physical body and non-physical body. In English, we call it body and mind. But in Sanskrit, they say it's physical and non-physical body. Would a debilitated planet decrease that corresponding sense? Yeah, but just don't. Yes, that's basic kindergarten theory. But don't jump the gun on thinking that you could actually build a skyscraper with kindergarten architecture. But yeah, that is the basic principle. Even PhD architecture is going to have the kindergarten principles in it. So it's good to learn it and start there. All right, now let's look at this second line. Adityadvit gulika shikinas tasya pidakara syu. So now what he's saying is you got the deho and the dehi. The dehi is the sun, the energetic source. The deha is the thing which is produced by the energy. So the body and the mind is the deha. So the sun is producing this thing really, right? And then you have these other planets cooperating with the sun and the moon to give it information about the world through the five senses. Then he says the sun has enemies, and we're not just talking about political enemies like Saturn and Venus and Mercury. The sun has dire, mortal enemies. And those things, which are not really planets, those things will attack the sun. So they will attack the body. So these are the things that represent disease. And these are the things that represent disease, malfunction, handicap, malformity, etc. So this is a big eye-opener. First of all, this is just a very interesting paradigm that you have the sun, moon, and the planets are working with them, and then you have these anti-planets, like shadow planets, that aren't actually planets, because if they were planets, they would be in the sun's hierarchy. They're not planets, but they're things or entities out there in space that manifest in relation to these planets, but they're non-physical. That are the enemies of the planets. They're like anti-planets. So those are, they're called the shikinas. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Shiki. Shiki means the peak of something. Like a shika is the top of your head. Shikari is the top of a building. Shikara. But shika is like a snake that rises up. So the word shika is used to refer to serpents, nagas. Nagas are like the main population of the anti-gods. If you watch the videos about nakshatras, you'll get familiar with this concept. The main population of the anti-gods are nagas. So the word shikhi means anti-gods. So, for example, everybody's familiar with Rahu Ketu. That's an example. In astrology, they use the word shika, means a thing that's high up and off the top, like a flag. Like a building, you have a flag on top of it, it'll call the shikara. They call Ketu is the flag. The word Ketu also means flag or shika. Because what they're talking about here is in the sky, sometimes you get flags. There's like a shooting star, looks like a flag. A comet, a shooting star, it looks like flags. So they call those the Ketus or the Shikas. So they're saying what we learn from this is that Vedic astrology in the medieval period, 14th century-ish, was using things in astrology besides the 7 planets. And some of them were things like Rahu Ketu that we know about, Gulika, and some things that are just not really even considered much today at all, like if there's a comet at that time, a visible comet at that time, asteroid shower, meteor shower. So it's not too, this is a liberal, for the people that are like neo-Vedic astrologers and everything, this is like a liberal hook that they can hook onto. The people that like to use Lilith and Vulcan and all those modern ideas about things in the thing, there's some hope for them that that's actually classically valid, because there's some evidence, like statements like this, that they thought about things like that. But they would be good for the neo-astrologer to look at the context or the extent in which they're used classically and not overuse them. So what's Gulika? Gulika, I forget which node. What's a node? A node is a place where things join, right? That's literally what a node is. So when we say the nodes in astrology, we mean the main nodes, the places where the moon's path and the sun's path join, where they meet. Those places are the nodes. And those places move a bit slowly backwards over the course of a year, as the sun moves and the moon moves with the earth. So that's one example of a node, the lunar and solar nodes. But any planet has a node, and it can have a node with the sun, it can have a node with somebody else. And they also may be doing things, if my memory of this from years ago when I studied it was, they were also calculating some points based on midpoints. If this much distance between this planet and that planet is called such and such. And that point is important. So there's other things that are not really things, but are side effects or shadows of things. And that's why they're called shadow planets. And those things are the manifestation of the anti-gods. So they will attack the sun and the sun's allies. So that's why they're called Aditya Dvit, the ones who hate the sun. Like Gulika and the Shikina. Like the nodes and the comets, etc. They indicate troubles, pidakara. They're the things that give troubles to the body, mind, and senses. So besides that bit about neo-modern astrology, the other thing that's an interesting point is medical astrology. Medical or physical astrology, it's obvious from this statement that you would be using these things. Gulika, Rahu, Ketu, all the Gulikas, there's like 7 or 9 of them. And comets or meteors, asteroid showers, that would be very important in that context to use in that field of astrology. All right, let me see if you guys have any questions about this. Hi, Alf. What's the defense to the antiplanets? The planets themselves are the defense. The planets themselves have strength because they're being supplied by Inas, the energy giver. So really the sun is the defense. Maybe a bit the sun's son, which is Saturn. They'll give you defense against these shadow planets. That's basically why, even though the sun gives you skin cancer, now that the ozone has been all messed up, it's basically why if you go out in the sun, you get vitamins and you feel healthier than if you stay inside, you get pale and weak. Cosmic Goddess must have came on late, or doesn't see the screen. sight is Mars and the sun, it says on the screen. All right. Let's do the next. I wanted to bring this. This is from a couple of verses down also. Also wanted to bring this in because it completes the idea. Here he says, Suryad Agni Jalagni. What's this? Suryad Agni Jalagni Bhumi Kapayo Vaivatmaka Surgraha. So here what he says is from Surya, you can get these elements. Agni, Jala, Bhumi, Ka, and Vayu. So from sun, Agni, Jala, Agni, Bhumi, Ka, Payo, Vayu. 7 planets go in that order. So sun is Agni, and then moon is water, and then Mars is Agni again. So sun and Mars are fire. And then you see there's 2 blue ones, Jala and Paya, that both means water. Moon and Venus are water. Mercury is earth. Jupiter is space. Saturn is air. So these are the elements. And this is important in relation to the senses because it works like this. Right? The roles that they play is the sun is the Inas, it's the energizer. And its element is fire. So fire providing energy is the sun, but fire also provides light, and so it reveals rupa. Then the moon is the body or taste, it's water. Water is the thing which is all inside of our mouths, where we taste things. Mercury, smell, its element is the earth. The earth, I mean, now the next slide I have to show you is how useful it is to actually study something like a Bhagavatam, study the Purana as you study astrology, so that you don't just hear things from the 14th century, but you understand the intellectual context in which those statements are made. But anyway, smell earth. You'll see why in a second. Again, Venus is water, that's why it's taste. Mercury is earth, that's why it's smell. Mars is fire, that's why it's sight. Jupiter is space, that's why it's sound. And Saturn is air, that's why it's touch. Make sense? So I'll just give you a complete picture of this. This is not, now, we'll leave the Phaladipika for a second. We'll go to Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Chapter 26 has this information in it. It says that space, which Phaladipika says Jupiter signifies. Space, each one of these 5 things, space, air, fire, water, and earth, is called a bhuta, something which is brought into being. They're the basic building blocks for reality, for perceivable reality, tangible reality. Space, air, fire, water, and earth, and in that order. People who were in the Bhagavatam stream are familiar with this. This will just be a recap. If not, go find the playlist for the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, so if you want to hear all this in detail. Space produces air, air produces fire, fire evolves from air, water evolves from fire. This is also why it's body-mind. Moon, which is water, is produced by fire through precipitation. It's the same way the body is actually produced, but it's miraculously produced through precipitation from consciousness. And then earth is generated from sedimentation from water. Fire is generated from air by friction, and air is generated from space by movement, because space is the container for movement or location. So then each one of these 5 basic atoms of reality has a corresponding perceptivity to it. It has some kind of quality by which you can perceive it. The quality for space is sound. That's why Jupiter, who is the planet for hearing, is the planet who represents space. That's why it's called Brihaspati. Brihaspati means the Lord of the vastness, the Lord of space. Air has the quality of touch. Once something is moving, so space has the quality of sound. Why does space have the quality of sound? Because it has size. And the basic way that you perceive size is through sound. It's really the basic way. You can also see size, but you can't necessarily measure the dimensions of something. You can't get a sense of the dimensions of something. You can get it through sound. You can also get it through anything lower than sound, which includes touch and sight and taste and everything. But it's the first quality that reveals the size of something is sound. Sound is based on size. Sound is based, that's why the sound of a room is dependent on the shape and the size of a room. That's why when you go to a theater, people even go to theaters anymore, they have a certain shape to them. And a certain size to them makes them better or worse. Sound is determined by space. And the amount of vibrations you can fit within that space determines the pitch of the sound. All right, so anyway, space generates sound, and so space is associated with sound is associated with the sense of hearing, which is in the ear, physical ear. So that's all Jupiter, sound and hearing. And then there's more out on the right. What does sound reveal? And what does space reveal? Space functions for location. That's the function. The function of space is to give things location. And by the sound of space, it reveals meaning, which means it reveals basic identity of things. Air touch. Touch is experienced through the tactile sense, which is manifest in our skin. That will reveal texture. Texture has many different things to it. The smoothness of something, the temperature of it, the firmness of it is texture. It's all included in there. And then touch gives, then air has two functions. Air has the function of vitalizing things because air is oxygen. And air has the function of moving things, blows things around. So space is location, but air is when there's movement in the location. Then fire, so that's all associated with Saturn. Movement, vitality. Saturn can withhold or give those things. And also the tactileness of things, actually touching something, actually holding something, is Saturnian. Fire is represented by Sun and Mars. Quality of fire is light. It also has heat, right? It produces heat, but the heat is an aspect of texture. It'll actually be sensed by texture, sensed through the skin. So because fire produces light, it's responsible for the sense of vision. And so planets like the Sun and Mars, they're associated with the eyes and seeing, vision, because they're fire element, which produces light. With the Sun and the Mars, with vision, what do you reveal about reality? The form of it, the shape. All different things about the shape, so like color, size again. Color, size, shape, the geometry of something. And then fire itself has these functions. Fire itself has the function of warming things up, which also means drying them out, and metabolizing things, digesting things, breaking them down. Then water. Water has the quality of flavor, and this is for the moon and Venus. They're watery. The quality is flavor, so therefore they are responsible for the sense of taste in the body, which is located in the tongue. They're going to reveal the flavor of something. It's kind of obvious. And then their function is very similar to fire, but it's the opposite. So fire warms and dries, water cools and moistens. And fire breaks things down, and so does water. But water will solubilize things, turn things into solvents. It makes things, it's soluble, whereas fire digests. So what you get with water is water will allow things to break down in a way that they can recombine again. Whereas fire breaks things down and just ends them, releases their energy, and turns the rest into waste product. Then finally, there's earth, which is associated to Mercury. The quality of earth is fragrance. So that's the most evolved perception, actually, is fragrance. Literally, how does this nose operate? The nose operates when a particle of something is carried by the air into the nose. Then the particle hits the receptors in the nostrils, and a scent can be detected. So it's actually a solid particle which is brought into the nose by the air. So the earth itself is fragrant. Earth is not the planet Earth, but it's solid things. So Mercury, which is got the quality, which is earth, the element earth has the fragrance as its quality. Therefore, it's responsible for our ability to smell things and the nose. What does the sense of smell reveal about something? It reveals the recipe in it. You smell something and you can figure out what's in it. So that's what it's for. It's for figuring out what something is composed of. And the condition of the components will be revealed. You can tell if somebody is sick or healthy by their body odor. You can tell if food is edible or inedible by its smell. The condition of something, and you can tell what's in something. And then the function of earth as an element is structure and containment. This explains why Mercury actually produces skin. Even though Saturn is giving the sense, in the nervous system, Saturn is the one that's going to do the tactile communication with the brain. Because it's detecting movement. That's what the sensors on the skin do. The sensors on the skin are Saturn, like the hair follicles and the nerves that are attached to them. But the skin itself, which is the thing that gives the structure or containment to the body, is the earth element, which is produced by Mercury. So here there's a difference between the skin itself and the sense organ which resides in the skin. Also, that's why Moon and Venus are fertile reproductive planets, because they're moistening and because they are solvent, so they're going to produce all the reproductive fluids. And also that's why the Sun and Mars are all about your metabolism, how well you can digest things. And Jupiter is going to influence your balance, although Mercury has a huge thing to do with balance. Location, being good at finding things. All right, any questions? Last questions? Marie asks, if in what way, if any, does the taste of moon differentiate from that of Venus? I haven't thought about it. I mean, I did think about it, but I haven't worked it out. I don't know. Similarly, in what way does the sun's vision differ from Mars's vision? They both supply vision. No, Ayush is just joking, because Venus is a sour taste. People always have this question, how can Saturn be vitality? If I'm the lord of poverty and you want to be rich, you better come and take care of me. Otherwise I'll make you poor, right? If I'm the lord of poverty, then I control your wealth. If I'm the lord of wealth, then I also control your poverty. If I'm the lord of wealth and you don't want to be poor, you better come to me. So you got to get this into your head. Otherwise you haven't even reached the threshold of how to deal with symbolism. Symbolism, which is the language of divination, requires some knowledge of grammar and these basic principles of two sides of a coin. If something represents light, then it also affects the dark. If I turn off my light right now, it'll be dark. If something represents dark, then it also represents the light. If you get rid of it. So you just have to get that basic grammar in. Negativity and positivity can apply to any symbol. If a symbol is negative, then negativity applying to it makes it more positive. If a symbol is positive, then negativity applying to it makes it more negative. Basic things. Kate, if Saturn is linked to touch, why does Saturn often produce physical isolation and a sense of lack? I think we just answered that. If I'm the Lord of isolation and you want to embrace somebody, you better make sure the Lord of isolation isn't standing in your way. If I'm the Lord of touch and you want to be alone, then you also better take care of me. Too many questions, my brain hurts. In the Shiva song on the Bhagavatam, it said about air, the joiner of earth to space. Do you think it can be applied here in relation to the planets? Saturn linking Jupiter and Mercury. Thank you, Alf. See if my brain hurts. I'll have to figure that out later. You guys can talk about it. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. It's got too hot in here, I think. That's the problem. See you later.